Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. I'm glad you're here. And let's begin with a word of prayer. Father in heaven, thank you for the new day, for this new opportunity. We pray that as we begin, all that we say and we do will be blessed by you. In the name of Jesus, amen.
All right, I'm glad you could make it. And we are going to be beginning this morning. And Tanya is going to actually start us off. She's going to show us. So before she comes up even, I just want to tell you very quickly. So do we have one of the cookbooks, Faldia? Yes, we do. All right here. So everything that's coming from here, it's not a new cookbook. This is actually from the Black Hills Health and Education Center. It's called Cooking with Natural Foods as You Search for Abundant Health. And we've been talking about not just in any normal plant-based diet, because most plant-based diet cookbooks today, they have good information, they have very tasty recipes, and they would be very enjoyable and you'd love them. But often they are not made as much for disease reversal like things like heart disease and diabetes, even though even a standard vegan diet will make you significantly less likely to have diabetes, like probably 70% less likely to have type 2 diabetes. Yet to have the best impact, it's getting toward the diet like Dr. Dean Ornish has shown to be able to reverse heart disease, and also that Dr. Esselstyn shares, and also Dr. Fleming. These are the three studies that have been conducted showing that you can actually reverse type 2 diabetes. And Dr. Neil Barnard has also worked with a plant-based diet and working to reverse or combat type 2 diabetes. And in this cookbook, it actually has a ridiculous amount of recipes, like a ridiculous amount. Like you almost never find cookbooks. They're just all over the place in here. But there's two kinds of recipes. There's standard plant-based diet where nothing in here is made of anything but plants. But then you have, you can't see it from where you are, but like, they have recipes that have the letter T in front of them, and the letter T stands for therapeutic. So all of the recipes, not every recipe in this book is a therapeutic recipe. So the therapeutic recipes, which there are a ton of them in the book, they are things that are unbelievably beneficial for weight loss, for type 2 diabetes, and for heart disease. So basically, according to the research, getting the fat calories down to like 10, 12, maybe 15% max of fat calories have been shown to be able to either arrest or reverse heart disease. And so in the cookbook, there's a bunch of them. Some of them are not, some of them are. You know, there's corn crackers, there's just about anything just any kind of recipe you can almost think of, it's in here. And the recipes that we'll be doing during the cooking school are all the therapeutic ones, correct, Faldia? Yes, they are. So these are low-fat, plant-based, and in general, they will also be good for what we've been talking about as the gut-brain connection. Now, the only distinction is, if you are one of the 6% of people that struggles with gluten or wheat intolerance, they will. So if you're not one of those people, if you have not actually been shown, I've actually tried both ways. I've gone gluten-free. I've added gluten back. Absolutely zero difference in my experience. I'm not one of the 6%. But if you happen to be one of the 6%, you would only want to eat ones that avoid gluten. And for those of you who do need to avoid gluten, you need to, if you seriously have a gluten, like if you're celiac, you need to be careful with even oats, because oats can sometimes have enough wheat mixed in that it can cause trouble. So you have to actually go and buy, gluten-free oats. But for the vast majority of people, you don't have to worry about that. But if you have really, some severe gut issues, then you might want to do that. So that gives you a little idea. So these are going to be therapeutic things. And here's the way it works. Like if you struggle with weight issues, and we're going to show some incredible stuff later on, but first we're going to show the recipes. If you struggle with weight, the best things you could do. So when it comes to health, there's like acceptable, and then there's like better, and best, right? So like there's certain things that are acceptable in life. Like from a biblical perspective, unclean meat is unacceptable. Then there's clean meat, people could choose to eat clean meat. That's actually acceptable. Is it the healthiest thing? No, it raises disease levels because of, various reasons. But then there's like moving on to, Pesco Vegetarians. Those are fish eating, I don't know how they call them Pesco Vegetarians because fish are not vegetables. But basically, people who eat just vegetables and fish, that is a step up. People actually have a healthier lifestyle as a result of that. And then you get to semi-vegetarians, then you get to vegetarian, and then you get to, whole food plant-based, which is just shown to be overall one of the very best things you could do for your health. And so it's good, better, best, and something to shoot for. And these therapeutic diet it can be fantastic. It can be very tasty, and it can also be life-changing. But if you were to do it and have the best results, you'd want to. So once again, acceptable would be 3 meals a day, with no food in between meals, none whatsoever. And you may think, man, I can't do that, but you'll actually get used to it. Your body will start just getting used to it. And then what's even better than 3 meals a day is what we looked at in the research yesterday, which was what? 2 meals a day, breakfast and lunch. And in the beginning, if you haven't been doing that, it's very difficult. But in a while, your body will get so used to it, and it won't even be hungry in the evening, and you'll notice your sleep is better, your energy is better. On so many different levels, it's easier. So I'm not saying that you have to do it, but if you're looking for the optimal health, we've already shown that the research shows that 2 meals a day with nothing in between meals is the most optimal way for health. But if somebody's very, very thin and a very hard worker, 3 meals a day may actually be beneficial for them. So there's always balance in these things, but we're just talking about, like we said, there's like acceptable, then there's, good, and then there's better, and then there's best. And so, but Tanya's going to come up, and she's going to teach us about the granola recipe. That's her. So I'll hold the mic for her because she's got to use her hands.
Yes. Okay, so this is the yummy granola recipe, and okay, so I'm going to say we have granola just about every day in my house. My son loves granola. We have a homemade yogurt that we make, and so we have it with granola just about every day and some fruit. And so after I made this, because it's a very different recipe, it calls for bananas in place of there's no oil, there's no apple juice, there's nothing like that for sweetener, so you use the bananas, and I was a little bit skeptical. So I switched it out so that my son could taste it, and I said, so how do you like it? And he said, it's always good. The granola is great. And I was like, it's a different recipe, and he was like, oh, okay. Well, it was great. So it's great. Kid tested. Okay, so this recipe calls for 2 ripe bananas, and that's going to be your sweetener. So I just put them in the blender, and then it calls for 1 cup of chopped dates. So I've already chopped them, but it's a Vitamix, so you don't really necessarily have to, but there's 1 cup of chopped dates in here. And then it calls for 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and I ran out of powdered vanilla, so I just have some vanilla extract, but it's just 1 teaspoon of the vanilla extract.
I didn't know there was powdered vanilla.
It's better. It's more flavorful, and it doesn't have that alcohol, I think, in it. So, yeah. So 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract.
I know it's hard. Stick it in your face.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's my fault.
Okay, let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, and then I need 1/2 cup of water. So
1/2 cup of water.
yes. I may make a mess with the water because I couldn't find a smaller water jug. So can you use your other hand?
Yes.
Very good. Then we'll hopefully not make a mess.
Just one of these?
Yep. Is it good?
Yep.
Awesome.
All right, there's our 1/2 cup of water.
Excellent. Okay, so then you just shove it all in there, put the lid on the blender. Oh, gotta turn it on. That helps. Okay, and you're not gonna be able to hear me for a second. So you don't really need the pusher for this mix because it's very liquidy. So I really use the pusher to see just how small the dates are. And once the dates get like really super fine, then I just stop. You don't want chunks of dates. Okay, so then the next piece, I'm going to put this over here and make a mess. So the next piece is your oats. So your oats are going to be, it calls for 8 cups of oats, and I measured this out so that I didn't have to measure out 8 cups. So this is 8 cups of oats, and then you're going to use 1/2 cup of cornstarch, and I also measured this out. So then you just mix it all together. Oh, and I left my spoon. Okay. I do need a spatula. It's in a bag, but if you could give me a spoon, that would be great. So, okay, so then I'm gonna wait to mix the spoon with the cornstarch, and then after you mix it together with the cornstarch and the oats together, then we're gonna add the sauce. Excellent. Okay, just a couple. And you really can't tell that there's anything other than oats in there after you finish mixing it together. And then you're just going to add your sauce. Make sure you get it all. I like to use what are those things, like a rubber spatula that I use to make sure that I can get every little inch out of it here. Because I like to make sure I'm not wasting any part of it. So then you just mix it all together. And I think if I was mixing this for my home, I would probably use my hands just to make sure that I get every little thing, and it's all blended very well. But
it probably feels good too to squish it in the hands.
It really does. I feel like there's something therapeutic about putting your hands in things and just squeezing, like kneading bread. What? There probably is. So once you've mixed it, you want to make sure that you have thoroughly coated everything, and that there's no huge chunks that have sauce where there's, still, you can kind of tell the difference because the color is going to change. The oats are going to get a little bit darker, so when it's completely mixed after all the oats are kind of dark. And it doesn't look like raw oats anymore. It looks like they're coated. So then once you have completely mixed it all together, I use parchment paper instead of aluminum foil because of the leaching. But so you just line. It usually takes, if you don't have a huge cookie sheet, it usually takes 2 cookie sheets, and you're going to want to pour it out, and you're going to put a 1/2 inch on each cookie sheet and let it cook at 275 for the instructions. Say 90 minutes. But you have to stir it every 30 minutes. So what I ended up doing was, I set the timer for 30-minute increments, but the last time, because after 60 minutes, it looked like it was getting really close to being cooked. So the last time I really only cooked it for about 10 minutes, and then I stirred it again, and then I left it in the oven for about 10 more minutes without the oven on. And it turned out to be really great and fully cooked, but I didn't want to burn it, so I didn't put it in for a full 90 minutes. So. Yeah,
and obviously it is always good to watch things, especially the first time you do that, because recipes may be, you may find, who knows, your oven may run a little warmer or cooler, than it says that it is, or whoever made the recipe, theirs may have, and so you don't know. So there's always, you got to kind of work with your own, kitchen, everything that you have.
Right. I used aluminum pans. I have aluminum pans with parchment paper on it, so if you have glass pans, it may be a little bit different as well.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So this much right here. So there's a white. What you're gonna when you do your breakfast, there's a container of granola, and that's how much it makes. And usually in my house, it lasts about 2 weeks. So I make it about every 2 weeks. And it lasts This is a great recipe because the recipe that I've been using with the applesauce and no oil, it takes 8 hours. I have to cook it overnight while I'm sleeping. So I really like this because it was done in less than an hour and a half, and it tastes the same. So
awesome. Hey, and one thing I want to share. Oh, yes, in the back. I'm sorry. I heard something about vanilla and.
thought that vanilla was a spice and it wasn't good for you.
You know, I don't know enough. All I know, it's called a vanilla bean, and in the past I've bought vanilla beans. I don't know if it's just a bean. I can't really say to that. So good question. But I can tell you one thing about oats. Some of us have sensitive guts more so than others, and sometimes for people eating even something like granola or oatmeal. Some people eat oatmeal and feel phenomenal. Other people get bloated and gassy, and they think, oh, everybody else does so well, but I just get all kinds of gut trouble and gas from it. If you're one of those people, or if you just struggle with gas all the time, one of the main factors can be that some of the things like oats can actually really benefit from something called dextrinization. You've probably heard of that. Maybe some of the ladies have, dextrinized some of their foods before. And the way you dextrinize is you can take with simple hot heat, all heat is hot. Dry heat is the way of saying it, dry heat. So what you can do is you can literally take some oats. There's a couple ways of doing it. You can do this with any grains. You can do it with wheat if you're going to make bread. If you have gut issues and bread is an issue, now if you're celiac, this is not going to work. Like, this is not for people with celiac disease. But somebody who might just feel like they're sensitive to grains, the way you do it is there's two ways of doing it. You could take like a frying pan, no oil in it. You just put your oats in there and turn it on. It may be, you're going to have to figure out your own temp on this. It could be 300 degrees. And you put your oats or your grains in there, just with nothing but them in there, and you continually stir them until they brown, not black. You don't want them to burn or char. Once you start doing that, there's some health consequences from actually burning it. But when you're just dextrinizing it, what that's doing is it's breaking down some of the starches to a way that is much more accessible to your body, and you may find that you don't end up having the gas trouble or just this uneasy feeling in your stomach. So if you're one of those people who thinks you're not celiac, but you think, well, maybe I'm just sensitive to wheat or gluten, you might actually find that this will help. I won't guarantee it, but it's a real option. And even if you're not someone who struggles with that, because if it's oats, most likely it's not a gluten issue. It could be if you're very sensitive to gluten, but still just trying this if you did it before you actually made your granola. I'm not saying you all have to do this. This is if you have a sensitive gut and you want to have the best digestion you can. By dextrinizing it first, putting it on a frying pan. The other way to do it is to actually put it like on a cookie sheet, just maybe a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, and put it maybe 300 degrees for 25 minutes. You're really going to have to watch because your stove is going to be a little different than somebody else's. But as it browns, it's going to be significantly easier to digest. Even if you don't have gut trouble, it still will be easier to digest. But if you do have gut trouble, it could be really life-changing, taking you from someone who walks around with a bloated stomach all the time, with gas all the time, and you just thought, I just thought that was part of being on a plant-based diet, having gas all the time. It doesn't have to be. And actually, if you have gas all the time, serious gas, it means you're not digesting your food well. Somebody told me that back in the day, and I just thought that's what happened when you went vegan. And no, there are actually ways to not have it be that way. And it can have to do with well-cooked grains. You know, the idea of eating, I know it's popular in Europe to eat muesli, and muesli is what? Basically raw grains like raw oats. I'll be honest with you. The first time I ever ate it, I was living in Iceland. I ate a bowl of muesli. I went to bed that night, and I thought I was having my appendix being ruptured. I'm not kidding. I thought I was going to have to go to the hospital, and it ended up just being like terrible gas. And it's because we do not digest well raw grains. Meaning once they've gone to seed and they've dried and they're hard, it is not like muesli is not a real health food. You actually want it to be well cooked. And so we'll let our next presenter come on whenever she's ready. But yeah, that's something to really think about. Dextrinization. If you struggle with gut issues, try it. Oh, and the same thing, when you toast your bread, that is a form of dextrinization too. And the way I do it, for instance, because even sometimes bread, really like just regular bread can give, it can make me more prone to having gas. But if I toast it, and the way I do is I don't toast it too long, and then I let it sit there and cool down again. You don't have to go through all this, but if you struggle with gut issues, I have a sensitive gut. I let it cool down again, and I do it again, and I do it literally a few times until it gets really, not black, but it gets kind of toasted pretty much through, and then I digest it just phenomenally. So if you're one of those, so this isn't talking to 99% of you. This is talking to the 5 or 10% of you that struggle with, maybe kind of some gut issues. But for these simple points, by seriously toasting your bread, and not only this is amazing. Ellen White talks about Zwieback being one of the forms of, foods that are super easy to digest, and it's true. So it's not only easier to digest, the research actually shows that it increases the amount of antioxidants in the bread. So it's actually beneficial. It's actually adding good nutrition to your food. And secondarily, it lowers the glycemic index of the bread. So it actually becomes something that if you're a diabetic, it's not going to spike your blood sugar as much if you actually toast the bread, which is dextrinization. So hopefully those things help to those who need it. You all set?
I guess so. Good morning. Today we are going to learn how to do cashew milk and almond milk, and you'll get a chance to actually try some afterwards. But we'll be demonstrating today the cashew milk. And I wanted to start out today by telling you about the machine. You can see this machine. It's called Soyabella. That's the brand. And I wanted you to kind of see that. I looked it up on the internet. It's around $100 from what I can tell. But this does beat the milk very, very, so that it doesn't have any gritty taste, because sometimes you get gritty taste if you don't have it really well ground. And so this is very smooth, and it works really well. I borrowed this from a friend of mine, so we're going to try. We'll all learn today to see if we can try to use this. It is her machine. But today, we're going to take our cashews, and I've already measured them. It's about 1 cup. Carrie says that she normally puts a little bit more than that, but just a little bit. You want to make sure that you wash your cashews very well. They do have bacteria on them. You want to put them in hot water, wash them several times, drain them so that they are clean before you start. And so we have that here. And we're going to add water. And in this machine, I know you probably cannot see it, but there is a fill line inside. So you're going to fill it to the fill line inside with water. So I'm going to do that now. All right. So we've got it to the fill line inside, and this will make about like, a box of milk that you get in the store. That's about how much this recipe will make for you. And Carrie says that she makes them about every 2 or 3 days. She can store it, and you can store it in a glass jar like this. You do not want to store it in an open pitcher. It will go sour. So you need to make sure it's closed and sealed to store if you're going to do that.
Can you hold the mic?
Yes. And now we're going to put our cashews, and we're going to attach them to the top here. Now this can be a little tricky, I found, because what happens is you have to push it in and try to work it down because you've got all these cashews in here. So I'm just going to try to get it in here. Yeah, kind of bounce it. Yeah. There we go. And then we got to make sure it's attached so it's firm. There we go. All right, now we're going to stick it in here. Let's see. I'm going to stick it like that. And she said that she usually does this 5 times. So there's buttons on the top. I don't know that you can see it, and it's flashing. When the flashing light is on, that means it's ready. So, and it's right in the middle. It says mill. And so we're going to push that 5 times. So I'll show you, just like this. Okay, and then you have to wait a minute because it has to recycle. It starts to blink again. So you're going to do it again. That's 2. It's got to blink. 3. One more time. Well, 2 more times here. 4. And then we're going to be adding our other ingredients, which will be salt and vanilla and your stevia to sweeten it. One more time. There we go. All right, so that should be done. Unplug it. Okay. All right. Just do it this way. Thank you. You have one. That's great. Then you should be doing this. All right. And so we're going to take this. I think I'm just going to just stick it in here. Yeah, there we go. All right. And okay, it just comes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'm just learning how to do this myself. Okay, we're going to stick this in here. Okay. And then you're going to want to add just a pinch of salt. And I didn't touch this, but the salt is to preserve it so it doesn't go bad. So you want to make sure that you have some in it. So about a pinch of salt. This is Himalayan sea salt. Okay. You're also going to want to add your vanilla, and this is powdered vanilla. And it is about a half a teaspoon of powdered vanilla that we're going to put in. You can get the vanilla in like health food stores. She does it in bulk. And so, yeah, you can probably order it on Amazon. But she does everything. She gets all of her nuts in bulk. And so there's different places. She said she uses, is it Azure? Azure. Okay. So Nut Company, Fort Worth, or Azure. Okay. We're going to also add, this is stevia, and it's liquid stevia. We're going to add 4 dropperfuls. Unfortunately, hers is almost empty. So we're going to add as much as we can get in here. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Yeah, I probably could just dump it in. It's true. All right. And then we're just going to seal it here. It's not heated, but inside the machine. Right. And so you're just going to mix it really well, thoroughly, and then we will have, you will do the same thing with almonds. One thing I wanted to tell you about the almonds is if you do almonds, you have to soak them overnight. It would be best if you soak them overnight. It will plump them up and make them a lot more tender to eat or to mix and so forth. And then also you want to peel them. So it is a lot more work to do almonds. That's why we decided to do the cashews. You can check and see. I think almonds may have a little bit more health benefit than cashews, but cashews are definitely easier to do. Okay. And now we will let you I'm not sure, but later on at least, you'll be able to go ahead and try the almond as well as the cashew milk. Yes?
I have that machine at home, but because I travel so much, I live during the week, I live in Oklahoma, and the weekends I'm in Texas. So what I did, you can do on your Vitamix as well, but you have to strain the milk.
Okay.
And I went on Amazon and I got this Plantain strainer. It's really good. And it's cheaper. And then I don't like this taste of stevia. I put on the little cup, I put some dates in it if you want to.
Okay.
You can put dates. With the almonds or with the cashews, you use the sweetener as well.
So those are great ideas. You can add different types of sweeteners, dates, so forth, if you don't want to use stevia. And you could also strain the milk, you said, if you're doing it in a Vitamix. So that is something that you could possibly do if you didn't have the machine. So, are there any other questions? Yes. I'm sorry? What's the machine called? The what called? The machine. It's called Soyabella. Soyabella. It's right here. Just hold this up here. See? What it's called. All right. Yes. Yes. No, there wasn't water in there. I added the water. Yeah. There is a fill line, like I said, inside the machine. And so we just filled it to the fill line inside the machine. Yes. How much water? I don't know because I haven't measured it. You have to just use the fill line inside. It tells you. If you could see inside here, you could see that there's a fill line inside the machine. So you just fill it with water. I'm sorry. I don't know.
Okay, so the blender for cashew, I put 5 cups of water.
Do you?
No, 4 cups of water for the cashew and 5 cups of water for the almonds. Yeah. And your almonds, like she said, you have to overnight in water and you have to peel it. But once it stays overnight in water, it's really easy to peel it. You just press it and the peel just comes out really easy. So the cashew, if you do on the blender, you don't have to strain it. But the almonds, you have to strain it.
Even with the Soyabella?
No, not the Soyabella.
But with the blender?
With the blender.
That's good to know that you can use the blender or the machine. That's great if you already have a Vitamix. All right. If there's no more questions, we'll move on. Okay. Do you want that?
Thank you very much. How many would like to thank our wonderful ladies for showing how to make excellent? Did you mention about the so whatever fiber is left over, there are actually recipes of how to you can let it dry and you can it becomes like milled, and you can make cookies, you can make patties with it, so you can use that too, and you'll find recipes for that if you look for them online. The price of a Soyabella, I just looked it up online. It's not on Amazon, surprisingly. It's somewhere else. I Googled it. It's $109. Oh, just check? Oh, interesting. So good. Thank you. Thank you for that. So not too bad. If you think of, how many times you'll use it, it'll probably pay for itself after a while. And Carrie did mention about the almonds, that if you forget to soak them and you need your milk, you can boil them for like a minute or two, and then that'll make it easy to peel them. And then again, so just remember that. Okay, so we're ready for the tasting of the granola, and we actually wanted to bake whatever she made here to have more, but We don't have a tray that fits in the oven. They're too big, the ones that are here. So I'm sorry about that. So the way it's going to work is you can see they're all set up there, the bowls, and they have a little bit of granola just for tasting. And then there is some strawberry sauce, which you can choose to try. You can put over the granola. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. It's just there to try. That's one of the recipes too. Strawberry sauce. Is Elena here, Sanker? Okay, she made it, I think, but she wasn't able to come. You made it? Oh, you made it. Oh, okay. Did you talk about it? You want to show? Okay, perfect. So you'll show it. Excellent. I'm sorry. And then there is some milk. Now that side, as you face the window, the milk on your right, that's almond milk, and the milk on your left is cashew milk. And there's plenty more cashew, but if you want to try almond, then you can get some of it on the other side too. Any questions? All right, so perhaps we'll just go by tables because the space is limited. So we'll begin on that side and you folks will go at the end. All right, we'll just pray for the food, okay? Lord in heaven, we thank you for every blessing and for this food that we're about to eat. And we pray that you'll bless it. In the name of Jesus, amen. All right, please go ahead, Thomas. Yeah. Yes, for later today, we have chili that Ruby made, so we'll get to try some chili too. And there's a lentil loaf, I believe, that Carrie made. She's not able to be here to show, but it's there, and we'll try it. And Chad will tell you about where to find the recipes for all of these. Are these recipes in the book? Yeah, right here. They're all here. And I think they have some for sale today. Yes. I don't know. Chad, how many books do you have? They're asking if you. Yeah, how many cookbooks?
You know, we probably don't have 15. We have some, so there's only so many here. But what we do is, and we typically have this, is where we can only bring so many. You know, flying on a plane. Number one, you don't know how many people are going to be there, so we take a box. And so if we run out, which we very well may here, you can just purchase it here. We will send it. We'll ship it to you or somebody else in the church or whatever, and then it will just arrive, and you'll be able to get it that way. It's cheaper that way because you could just buy it on our website, but then you have to pay shipping. But if we just do it all one package, it makes it easier. So, yeah. Hey, well, while everybody's eating, I want to share with you something, actually, and if you would like to say it, that would be great. Now, some of you probably have no idea about what we're going to share right now. I was reading a book by a pediatric neurologist, so a childhood brain doctor, and one of the things that they're finding, certain children have serious behavioral problems. Like, you would look at them and you would say, that kid is crazy, and you might think that parent has no idea how to control their children. They are not good parents. And sometimes, this is crazy, it is as simple as an allergy to a food that is perfectly fine in most people, but when the child eats it, it creates inflammation in their body and in their brain and can drive them to almost insanity. And this one particular child she was brought into the pediatric neurologist, and the child was just bonkers, just off the wall, crazy. And the parent was just trying to figure it out. Well, it turned out that poor child was simply allergic to soy. They got the child off soy. Most people do fine with soy, but they got the child off soy, and the next time the kid came into the doctor's office, it was like a totally different child. Calm, good, just seemed like they had always been a saint. And I was just talking, what was your name again?
Beverly Adams.
Beverly Adams just shared with me a personal experience from her family, and I wanted her to share it so that you can hear, not that, this one has to do with corn. And corn for many of us, well, almost all corn is GMO today, but, if it's organic corn, I don't just eat organic food, by the way, but sadly, we do have a lot of GMOs. By the way, little side note, there is no commercially available GMO wheat in the United States. You probably heard all wheat is GMO. It's not true. That is one thing that is not GMO in the United States, and the reason is because we are one of the biggest international distributors of wheat, and our other countries don't want GMO wheat, and we know if we put GMO wheat out in the fields, it'll be everywhere, and nobody will buy our wheat. So we don't have GMO wheat. They do spray it with Roundup, typically, if it's not organic, before they actually harvest it. But that's off the point. I want to allow Beverly to share a personal family experience. And listen up to this, because this may not be for you. It may not be for your family, but it could be for a grandkid or somebody else. And I just want you to hear this. I think this is very important.
I have a grandson in Arizona, my daughter's son, and he had anger issues just about from birth. And he would just lose it. I mean, he could not control himself. He would get mad. Anything crossed his path, he had a problem with it. And it was just uncontrollable. And they took him to an allergist, and they had him get off sugar. That helped a little bit. They improved their diet. They eat real well. They're vegetarians. And but finally, after doing a lot of research on the internet with other mothers who seemed to have the same problem, she took him off of corn. It just changed his world completely. He became a new kid. And everything was going real well during the day until it got to the evening time, right before bed, and then he would lose it again. Well, they finally figured out there's corn in toothpaste. So, the xylitol and the sorbitol and there's corn sweeteners in your toothpaste. And so when she had to make his own toothpaste to get over that. But they can't even eat food most of the time from a can, because canned food has citric acid, and you think that's from citrus. No, it's not. It's from corn. Corn is just everywhere. So if you have a corn allergy, it'll cause a problem. But he is a new kid.
Thank you so much. And the point isn't to tell you that corn is bad. The point is I do great with corn. But you may be a person, or you may know someone who really struggles with some emotional issues or mental health issues. And it's not always easy to figure out, but there are times where if you find out you have an allergy to some food, it could literally change your life or your grandchild's life or your child's life. And like I said, it could be one of the simplest things that is a healthy food for most people, but it may not be a healthy food for you. And, by the way, obviously, I'm going to share with you, we're going to do some more, I'm not going to share with you this presentation yet, we'll do it after some more cooking, but when you're eating the therapeutic diet that we're talking about in this book, you wouldn't eat a tiny bit of granola like this. You would eat plenty. We just only have so much. So don't think, to be healthy, you can only eat a tiny bit of food. That's not the point. You should actually eat at dinner time or breakfast or lunchtime. You should eat until, you're comfortably full. Not stuffed, but like where your body says, okay, you've had enough. And when you're eating very healthy, it will actually get much easier to do that. Now, right now, you only ate a tiny bit, and like that. Nobody likes to finish a meal where they're hungry. And we would never suggest that because you're going to struggle with hunger more if you're not able to get enough. We only had so much, so that's all you can have. But we're not telling you just eat a tiny bit. You want to eat till you're comfortably full. But I think we will, yeah.
Yes, so at this time, we're going to have 2 more showings of how to make the strawberry sauce, which has more than strawberries, and that will be shown by Tanya. And then Ruby's going to show how to make chili. Now, the recipes we're using come from the book, and we have those, and I'm going to email them to Lisa, and then Lisa will email them to the group email that you receive, the church email. So everyone in the church that is on that list will get the recipes. But if you know that you're not on that one because you don't receive the weekly emails with the bulletin and the announcements, then please approach Lisa. Lisa, can you raise your hand? She's sitting on this side. And so if you're not on that, we want you to get the recipes. If you would like to have them, please let her know what your email is, and then she can send that to you. Is that fair? Great. Okay. So Tanya's ready.
I think I said cornstarch. There's no cornstarch in the granola. It's cornmeal. It's a half a cup of cornmeal, which is why you saw it was yellow instead of white. So thank you for somebody who, I don't remember who it was that told me, but thank you for telling me that I did get nervous up here and made a mistake. So this is the fruit sauce that you had with the granola, and it's in the cookbook. It just says use banana, strawberries, and crushed pineapples. So there's no, it doesn't tell you how many cups of strawberries or anything like that to use. So basically, I think it's really a cookbook after my own heart, but in that sense of the word, because what that means is make it fit your taste. Right? So if you like things to be a little bit more sweet, then you might add another banana, or you might use, another half a banana. If you like it to be a little bit more on the tart side, you might put more strawberries in it. So I have used 2 bunches of the strawberries and then 2 ripe bananas, and then we're going to use a can of crushed pineapples, and you can use your preference. I try to get the organic and the non-GMO, but I didn't have that available to me when I was buying crushed pineapples. So.
And this is the one that's in 100% pineapple juice.
Yes, that is actually very important. You don't want to add the extra syrup and the sugar and everything, especially if you're using the therapeutic, I'm assuming. Okay, so very simple. It's on. So this is really to your preference as well. So here's what, and I'm not going to do that part because, so this calls for however much of the fruit to make, strawberries, bananas, and crushed pineapples. It also calls for cornstarch, and then you cook it. So you have a couple of options. You can mix the cornstarch in a little bit of water when you put it in the pan, or how I did it last time was I mixed the cornstarch in with the fruit when I put it in my blender, and then I just poured it all into the pan. And then I just basically let it cook on low until it started to bubble and get a little bit thicker, and then I just turned it off and let it sit. You can use it either warm or cold. You saw what we put on the fruit this morning was a little bit warm, but you can use it warm or cold. My son prefers it cold, and I actually kind of like it warm, so it's just suit your preference.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. Simple recipe, and obviously, if you didn't even want to do, if you want to do real quick, you could skip the corn. Was it cornstarch?
Cornmeal.
Cornmeal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could.
The cornstarch for this one. Sorry.
Okay, this one had cornstarch, and you could even skip that if you just wanted to simply make it like kind of smoothie, and if you just want a cold thing to add with it, that way you don't have to cook at all. But I'll tell you about cooking.
You can add chunks, just chunks, so you don't have to blend it all up. You can add chunks of the fruit.
Yeah. If you like it chunky, you can do it that way too. And for some people, the thing is, remember we're talking in broad pictures here, not for everybody. A lot of times when people talk about health, they say this is exactly how you have to do things, but we all have to work with our own bodies. Some people struggle with this, some people struggle with that, some people struggle with nothing. And praise the Lord if you're that person and you have an iron stomach, Yeah, you're blessed. But for those of us who are not, so keep in mind that some of these things are not for you. But for those of you who really struggle with gut issues, you may say, I struggle with fruit, I can't eat it. You may actually find that by cooking it or boiling it to begin with, it'll make it even easier to digest for those of you who really have gut issues. So this isn't necessarily for everybody. I don't have to boil my fruit, but for some of you, it just breaks it down, makes it easier to uptake for your body. So just another heads up for those who have gut issues. And now I'm trying to remember, do we go on right with the next one, or do I share on some of our information? Do you know? Anybody know? Okay, well, since I don't know, I'm going to go forward. I'm going to share with you guys some amazing stuff right here that is going to answer some of the questions. Because, okay, how many of you have heard of the paleo diet? Paleo diet? How many of you have heard of the ketogenic diet or the keto diet? Okay, and so then you have all kinds of other diets like the South Beach diet or low carb diet, and there's the fruitarian diet, and you have vegan diet, and you have the Atkins diet, and a number of them kind of are like contrary to each other. But some of the most common perspectives is, what is the most common perspective of what is making Americans fat? They're eating too many what? What would they say? Carbs, right? Now that's one thing almost all these diets teach. But we're going to look at the actual research and find out, what does the science actually say? Now the Bible says in Psalms 103 verse 5, God is the one who satisfies your mouth with good things so that your youth is renewed like the eagles. And by the way, if somebody else was needing to cook, I don't want to keep them from, were you going to cook? Okay, I'd actually rather have you do it. I'm sorry, I just wasn't catching what was going on. I'll share with you afterwards. So you're going to be teaching on the chili? Yes. Chili, all right. And I'll be up here with you to hold your mic. Sorry for keeping you off. So we'll talk about the chili, and then I'll go into the research on, are carbs the great devil in the food industry? We'll look into that. And once again, this is a part of the therapeutic diet in here. So this is, if you struggle with weight, like we said, heart disease, diabetes, those kind of things, the ones with the T in front of them specifically are the ones you're going to want to stick to. And you're going to be getting some of these in an email. You'll be getting these recipes on specific, not the whole book, but you'll be getting the ones that are being tried at the cooking school.
I have everything measured here.
And you might notice when you watch cooking schools on television, they go, you put a cup of this and a cup of that and a cup of this and a cup of that, and you're like, man, that's so easy. But it's like you didn't see behind the scenes where they had to cut it all up and put it in all those cups, and now they have to wash all those things afterward. And that's kind of how it is here, too. They put it all together at home, and now it's so easy. But I'll let you share.
Okay, so first of all, good morning. This is definitely a chili full of vitamin C, vitamin B, antioxidants, because first you start, and protein. You start with 3 cups of beans, and you can cook the beans, use chili beans, whatever. So you're just going to put everything together in your pot. So I have 3 cups of beans here. Okay. Then you have 1 can of tomato paste, and it's the little can, the 6-ounce can. So that's what I have here, tomato paste. Okay. And then you have 3 cups of tomato juice. Make sure it's 100% tomato juice, so you don't have the extra salt or sugar that some other tomato juices add. So I have 3 cups right here of 100% tomato juice. You also have half a cup of onion. And I like to use yellow onion. That's just my preference, my favorite. Put it all there. And then I combine the salt. No, here's my salt. You have 1.5 tablespoon of salt. I like to use the Himalayan salt, so I put that in there. Then I have garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 2 teaspoons of cumin. And I combined it here.
Was it 1.5 teaspoons of salt?
Yes, sir. 1.5, yes. And that's pretty much it. You combine everything in your pot. You let it simmer for about 30 minutes. Combine everything. And then the finished product right here, and I like to top mine off with a little bit of cilantro and avocado. So, and I was going to demonstrate, there's another recipe. I made it at home, but did not bring everything. These are cornmeal crackers. So very easy, a cup of cornmeal, and if you have a Nutri-Mill or something to grind non-GMO popcorn, you can make your own cornmeal, throw it in there, make your own cornmeal. For 1 cup of cornmeal, you put half a cup of boiling water to it and a little bit of salt, and you make kind of like a dough. I like to roll mine between 2 pieces of parchment paper. Roll them out as thin as you possibly can. Some, they weren't as thin. And then stick it in the oven at 350, and you have your cornmeal crackers. And then if you want to put some on top of your chili, you can. You know, I kept checking on it, and it was probably about 25, 30 minutes, but it's going to depend on your oven. So just check them and see, oh, I like them this crunchy, or I like them a little bit softer. But they're really good. They're really good, so.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I want to share this with you. Someone went to go buy some chips for us because we don't have enough for everybody of this, but I want to share with you, if you're looking to reverse type 2 diabetes or heart disease, standard tortilla chips in the store are not going to help you reverse heart disease or diabetes. They simply won't. They could simply add to it, actually. But these, making something like this, these chips actually can help you reverse the type 2 diabetes, reverse the heart disease. And it can be because of all the fat in chips that when you eat them, it might not spike your blood sugar that day. It can have a delayed effect the next day, strangely enough. Fat can actually make your blood sugar spike the next day, although for the meal, you're like, wow, my blood sugar was great. When you eat a lot of fat, that meal, it will curb your blood sugar spike. But if you get on a low-fat diet, it might spike for a few days, or a day or two, but then very rapidly, as the fat comes out of the cells, your cells will open up to the sugar, and very rapidly you can get better from that. Now, were there any more teachings on cooking before I get started with the presentation? No, I'm good? Okay. All right, so I want to share this with you for a moment. We're going to show, once again, the best lifestyle to lower cholesterol, help get to an optimal weight, reverse heart disease, which has to do with, obviously, we talked about this yesterday. And by the way, most people imagine the way you get a heart attack is when finally this plaque grows so close together that the blood can't flow through. But it's actually a minor number of heart attacks that happen like this. What actually happens in most heart attacks, a piece of plaque like this breaks off and it slams against the side like this, and then the blood can't get through. Most of the time it's from kind of a rupture of the plaque in the artery that breaks off and just blocks the artery. It's not actually from 100% closure. It can happen like that, but it's not the majority of the time. So then, also, the best diet to reverse and lower risk of diabetes, lower risk of dementia and Alzheimer's, lower risk of cancer, and sometimes can even reverse it, and lowers risk of depression, and enhances quality of life overall. Now, you probably heard of BMI. It stands for Body Mass Index. And anything 25 and above is considered overweight, and then you get up over time to even obese, but 25 and above is considered overweight. Here is Americans from 1870 to 2013. Notice your average American in 1870 had a BMI of 22 point something. And then they continued to grow until just after 1925. The average American just after 1925 became overweight. And then we continued to grow, and we did have a drop around 1950, probably after the war. Things went down for a bit. And then we went up from 1975. We continued to grow and grow and grow. And now, once again, we're told in all of the mainstream media, that's an exaggeration, in much of the mainstream media, carbs are making everybody fat. And they'll tell you that in the 1970s, our government said we should cut down on fat. We cut down on fat and Americans became fatter. And they'll show you this chart. Look, they began to tell people to cut down on fat and they got fatter. So actually, you should eat more fat and then you get skinnier. This is what they say. Now, but here's the thing. Did you know that we never stopped eating fat? We never went on a low-fat diet. We actually continued after the 1970s to eat more fat. They told us to eat less, and we ate more. And actually, we ate more carbs also, and we ate more protein. We ate more of everything since the 1970s. So it's just like, it's kind of they'll lie and say, wow, we went on America went on a low-fat diet and we all got fatter. It's actually not true. We ate more fat, more carbs, more protein, we ate more calories. But are carbs the problem? Let's look at this. So tell me, what are some of the main foods with carbs in them, typically when they talk about it? Bread, what else? Potatoes, pasta, these kind of things. But let's look at this. So here is the flour and cereal, so you could say maybe bread, potato, and sweet potato consumption in the United States from 1909 to the year 2008. And notice, in 1909, over 100 years ago, the average American ate over 300 pounds of flour a year. Were they overweight in 1909, yes or no? No. Do we eat more flour today than we did over 100 years ago, yes or no? So people ate like 100 pounds more a year of flours and bread 100 years ago, and they were fatter. They were significantly thinner. They were actually thin when they ate more bread. Interesting. But actually, they'll only show you the chart here. This is where when they deceive you into thinking bread makes you fat, they say, look, we eat more flour since 1975. They'll show the chart only from 1975. They won't show you from 1909. But in actuality, we ate way more back then. Did we eat more from 1975 to today? Yes, we did. But we eat more of everything since 1975. So that doesn't really totally count. But let's go further. So what about potatoes? Are we eating more potatoes? Actually, we used to eat about 200 pounds of potatoes a year. Now we eat maybe 125. So that's more carbs back then when they were thinner. What about sweet potatoes? Same thing. Sweet potatoes, they didn't eat a ton. They ate maybe 25, 30 pounds back in 1909. And now we eat just above no sweet potatoes at all. And so we ate more of these whole carbs, right? But let's look at some other foods. What about cheese consumption? Do you think we eat more or less cheese today than 100 years ago? Yes, more. Like we shot out of a cannon, right? We just ate way more cheese. And cheese is one of the fattest foods on planet Earth, one of the most calorie-dense foods on planet Earth. And what about beef, pork, chicken, and turkey consumption by pound per year? So you look at beef, and we used to eat around 50 pounds a year. We now eat, I don't, but, many people eat maybe 65 pounds a year. So we eat more than we did in 1909. But once again, they will only show you this from 1975, and it makes a good argument. Look, we're eating less beef, and we're getting fatter. We need to eat more beef and get thinner. It looks like it, right? But, well, we can't just stop there. Pork, we eat about the same amount of pork. Obviously, we don't eat pork, but chicken, we do eat significantly more chicken, and chicken is way fatter than it used to be, actually. Way fatter. Chickens aren't very chickenish anymore. But let's look at turkey. Turkey, we do eat a little more than before, but not that big of a difference. Now I'm going to show you, this is not to be insulting, this is just science. So, studies have been done on Seventh-day Adventists. Adventists have been studied more than almost any group of people in history, originally because they thought vegetarianism was a disease. And when they studied Seventh-day Adventists, they found just the opposite. Actually, Adventists were one of the longest living group of people, and today are probably the longest living group of people on planet Earth. And so let's look at BMI by food type. Now, remember, anything 25 and above is overweight. So if we look at the first group here, not sure what, let me go back one. Oh, I don't know why. You can't see it on here. I see it on my screen. So this right here is meat-eating Seventh-day Adventists. It's on my screen, but meat-eating Seventh-day Adventists are on average 28.8, meaning the average meat-eating Seventh-day Adventist is overweight. This next one here is semi-vegetarians. Adventists who only eat meat every once in a while, they are also overweight. They're just not as overweight as the ones who eat it maybe every day. And then you move on to the next group. These are called Pesco Vegetarians. These are the Adventists who eat fish. They are also statistically overweight. Then you go to the next group. These are lacto-ovo vegetarians. These are Adventists who eat cheese, milk, dairy, and eggs, and they are also statistically overweight. There is only one group of Seventh-day Adventists that is not statistically overweight. There is only one, and that is the people who only eat plants among the Seventh-day Adventists. So it seems as if the vast majority of Adventists are overweight. This is not to be insulting. This is just looking at the research. Now, are there some meat-eating Adventists who are trim and fit? Yes. Are there some overweight vegans in the Adventist church? Yes or no? Yes, there are. And so this is not an insult. There's people all over the map, but when you average them out, all of Seventh-day Adventists are statistically overweight, except for the vegans. And you may think, well, why is that? And I'm going to show you. And it's not because they're better people or they just have more diligence in their eating and they eat less. It's not actually that. There's a reason why, and it's the full factor. Right? We've named this, my wife and I, the full factor. And just to help you understand how the full factor works, this is 500 calories of oil in your stomach. If you had 500 calories of olive oil, coconut oil, any kind of oil, I'm not going to, no judgment, but did you know they have done a head-to-head study of people consuming coconut oil with beef fat? And coconut oil raises your cholesterol more than beef fat. So the American Heart Association now tells us, do not eat coconut oil. You can use it in your hair, you can use it on your skin, they say, do not take it internally. Now, I mean, if you want to eat a little bit of coconut from time to time, a whole food, but the idea that coconut oil, it is totally a marketing gimmick that they have duped us all. And so we actually thought it was a health food, but think about it. Is refined sugar a health food? No. But we've been duped into thinking by marketing geniuses that when you refine fat, it's a health food. But it's actually not a health food. It's really not. And no judgment, you can choose to eat it if you want, but you may have high cholesterol and think, I'm a vegan, and I just eat coconut oil, the best kind of oil to eat, and I have high cholesterol. And that may be the exact reason you have high cholesterol, because of coconut oil, or oil in general can actually do it. So this is 500 calories of beef. Would you be full if you ate 500 calories of oil, yes or no? No, nobody would just eat 500. Well, you might, because people tell you to drink the stuff today. Would you be full if you ate 500 calories of beef? Yes or no? No. Would you be full if you ate 500 calories of chicken? Yes or no? No. The reason you know is because you got all this empty space in your stomach. Does anybody like to finish a meal when you're hungry? And you say, Chad, we just did that this morning. Well, there's more food coming, but I don't know if we'll have enough or not, but you get the idea. But would you be full if you filled your stomach with 500 calories of whole plant foods? Yes, it would actually fill your stomach up. And so this is the thing. So meat-eating Adventists and Adventists who eat refined food, when they eat, does anybody just eat a meal like this? No. You add bread to it, or you add other veggies, or you add other things, and so you end up getting way more calories, and everybody eats till they're comfortably full. Yes or no? Except for people on diets, and then they hate their life. Nobody likes to get to the end of a meal and you can only have this many calories. You can only have this much of this food, and this much of this food, and this much of this food. Everybody hates to live like that, and I don't live like that. I used to be 30 pounds heavier, and now I eat as much as I want at mealtime. I never eat between meals. That's just something I don't do. And so, because we were told that. I'll tell you this. I'll give a little bit of my experience. When I became a Seventh-day Adventist, I went to a school, an Adventist school, and I'm just like, well, I don't know what Adventists do. I've never been an Adventist. I just met these people. I just became an Adventist, and I don't know how they live. And so I thought, I'll just do whatever my roommate does. And you know what my roommate did? Every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, he'd roll out of bed without even turning on the light or even standing up. He'd roll out of bed and start praying. He'd kneel down and pray. And I thought, okay, that's what Seventh-day Adventists do. So I rolled out of bed and I just started praying at 5 in the morning. And then when he got done, he started reading his Bible, and he read his Bible for 3 hours. So you know what I did? I read my Bible for 3 hours, because that must be what Adventists do, right? And then we went to breakfast, and it was a vegan meal. And then I was told, the Adventists don't eat between meals. And I was like, okay, I guess I don't eat between meals anymore, right? And I just did what everybody else did, and you know what happened? I'm so glad I had such a good roommate. Because what if I would have had another roommate? I would have been like, oh, that's what Seventh-day Adventists do, right? And so my roommate was only there for 2 weeks, and then he left, and then I got a new roommate, and you know what happened? When 5 o'clock came around, you know what I did? I rolled out of bed and I started to pray, and guess what my new roommate did? He rolled out of bed and started to pray too. And I'll bet he did it just because I did it, right? And so we can all be a good witness to each other, right? And praise the Lord, I had a good witness to me in the beginning. But you can actually make a decision, I won't eat between meals. You can do it. And you'll get to the point where it's like, it's easy. I don't even care to eat between meals. Actually, I don't even want to, because you just don't feel as good. You just do it because you're bored often. But if you eat, the thing is also, you'll eat a bit more during mealtime after a while, because you don't eat between meals. But you never know how much you eat in a day when you just kind of graze all day long. You never know. But you'll see if you cut it off and just decide, I'm only eating at mealtime. So once again, the reason vegan Adventists are the thinnest isn't because they don't eat as much food. It's because the food that they eat doesn't have as many calories. Does that make sense? It's called the full factor. And I'm going to clarify this even more. Well, remember, we already said these are vegan. Are they healthy? Oreos are vegan. Are they healthy? Yes or no? Does vegan mean healthy? The answer is no. Plants are healthy in their whole form. You can cook them. You can eat them raw. Either way, they're healthy in that form. But when it's, when we refine it, then it ceases to really be a health food. It's not a sin to eat something that's refined. It's just not as healthy in general. So let's go on. I want to show you the full factor. These are 4 fig bars, like Fig Newtons. My wife and I, we bought all these foods. We took pictures of them, and we bought most of them at the dollar store. Number one, because we're cheap, And number two, because we don't really eat refined foods, so we just bought them to show you the difference of what happens with refined foods versus whole foods. Now these 4 little tiny fig bars are 280 calories. Now, I'm going to show you 2 pictures side by side over and over and over and over. And I'm not saying you could either eat this or this. I'm showing you how many calories of 2 different things, a refined food and a non-refined food. So it's not saying you could either eat this or this. You could either eat 280 calories of fig bars, or you could eat an entire cantaloupe, and it's 6.5 inches, and it is actually less calories than this. What would be more prone? I know you're not going to go eat a whole cantaloupe, but what would fill you up more if you ate these 4 little bars or that entire cantaloupe? What would fill you up more? The cantaloupe. But obviously in like an hour and a half, you're going to be hungry after eating a cantaloupe. So I'm not suggesting that's all you eat, but and nor am I saying you need to eat a whole cantaloupe. But I'm just helping you to understand that certain foods fill you up and other foods don't, but have a ton of calories. So let's look at these. And I love these. I got to be honest with you. Peanut butter pretzels. Those things are amazing. It's like they were a match made in heaven, it seems like, right? But tiny little bit of them is 150 calories. You could either eat that or you could eat an entire pound of strawberries and they have the same amount of calories. Now, right here, you're going to get all the fiber, the nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the antioxidants. It's all right there, and it's just amazingly healthy. And the refined food is just not as good. It's not a sin. It's just if you're looking to lose weight or reverse heart disease or diabetes, you want to move toward that direction. That's what we're saying, to avoid things like this. It's not a sin, not at all. But also here we have some kind of like Nutter Butters, but since these were at the dollar store, these are like dollar store cheap brand Nutter Butter type things. 2 little cookies, 140 calories, or you could have just under 12 ounces of blackberries. And so obviously that's a better route to go. You have M&Ms, 220 calories, hardly any M&Ms, or you could eat 2 whole Honeycrisp apples, 220 calories. This one is amazing. This one, now keep in mind, this is not, you're going to choose between these 2 things at a meal. Nobody is going to choose the next one at a meal. But I'm just showing you how few calories are in whole foods. So this is 210 calories of Nutella or Nutella? Yes, Nutella. This is 210 calories. I mean, hardly any. You'd easily spread that on your bread, and then you would say that bread made me fat. Right? But it wasn't the bread. It wasn't the bread. It was what you put on the bread, right? And so you could either eat that. Now, the next thing I'm not going to say, the next one has the same amount of calories, actually less. Or you could eat 3 pounds of cucumbers. Now, nobody at mealtime is deciding between Nutella and 3 pounds of cucumbers, nor am I saying you should eat 3 pounds of cucumbers. But what I'm showing is whole plant foods hardly have any calories. They hardly have any calories. They help you to lose weight. Now, you don't just eat cucumbers at a meal, by the way, obviously. So here is, you could either eat 2 pounds of cheese, just a thin slice of cheese, or that's 230 calories, or you could eat 1.28 pounds of butternut squash. You could do that, and you could, and there would be nothing wrong with you eating that whole squash. Now, this wouldn't be a problem at all. You actually could. I mean, you'd be pretty full probably by the end, but it would be good for you. And so these are ridiculously tasty 7 cheese sticks, right? Now, we all know those are tasty. Or, same calorie-wise, 490 calories. Or you could have 3 pounds of broccoli. Now, nobody's going to eat 3 pounds of broccoli. I get it. I'm not saying that. You can mix and match the veggies. You can cook them, or you can have them raw. It's up to you. Actually, cooked coarse vegetables like this are actually easier on your stomach if they are cooked, actually. So if you have any sensitivity to your stomach, it will be easier for you to digest cooked broccoli. And by the way, I think they taste much better cooked anyway. But hey, if you like them raw, go for it. So you know what combos are? Kind of like peanut butter, or not peanut butter, cheese-filled chips, I don't know, rolled up. They're really tasty, obviously. But this is, what's that? Combos. What did I say? Yeah, combos, right? Yeah, combos. They're very tasty. So combos, 840 calories. Now, you're not choosing this, but I'm just showing you. Or you could eat 6.5 pounds of watermelon. Don't do that. You'd probably rupture your stomach. I'm simply showing how, this would unbelievably fill you up. And this, man, I mean, if you're a human like me, when I eat some of this more junk food, I never want to stop. There's never a time where my body says, you've had enough, until you're like, oh, man, I've had enough, But you don't just finally like, oh, I'm done. Oh, I'm good to go. No. It's like but some of you I know are really temperate people. Some of you, and I'm not one of those people. I'm not naturally temperate. And so the only way for me to be fit and trim and healthy is to eat plants rather than junk food, because I love junk food. So let's go forward. Here are Ritz Bits. This is only 3 ounces. It's hardly any, 450 calories. Or you can eat 2.8 pounds of carrots. Do you realize now, and are there carbs in carrots, yes or no? Yes. And then are these making you fat, yes or no? Is America getting fat because of too many carrots? No. So here are Stacks chips. And normally when people look at chips, and you're going to have some chips at the meal here just because we didn't have enough, but I would not suggest them to you if you're losing weight. If you really want to lose weight or reverse diabetes or reverse depression, reverse anxiety, avoiding chips and so forth, you can actually make your own, the ones in the cookbook, and you'll actually have a benefit. But normally people look at chips like this and they say they're bad for you because they're carbs. Did you know that potato chips and corn chips and these things, they're actually a fat, not a carb. The majority of the calories in these things comes from fat, and we say it's the carb that's making us fat. It's actually the oil in there that's making you fat. And we blame the carbs. It's just totally backwards. It doesn't even make any sense. So you could either eat 24, these are like, these are Stacks because they were the dollar store kind, but we normally call them Pringles, right, in the name brand. And so you could either eat that or you could eat 1.65 pounds of acorn squash, and there's less calories in the squash. Now, here's 2 beef burger patties, just beef. And now, do people typically at a meal just eat them like that, yes or no? No, you add to it bread, so you have more calories there, and then you say the bread made me fat, right? And no, it wasn't the bread, and then you add, obviously the lettuce, that's maybe the most redeeming part, and the tomatoes on there, that's the most redeeming part of it. But then you add, obviously ketchup, and I don't know, do you put mayonnaise, or do you put all kinds of other stuff on there? And then we blame the bread. The bread did it to me, right? So you could either eat 2 beef burger patties or you could eat 7 sweet potatoes. Could you eat 7 sweet potatoes at a meal? I'll bet you couldn't get those in your stomach. And the point isn't that you should eat 7 sweet potatoes. The point is that these fill you up with nutrition, with fiber, with vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and these fill you up with basically just fat and protein. And a few vitamins, but not much, and 0 fiber. So they're not feeding the good gut bacteria. This right here is 3.9 ounces of fish fillet in oil, tiny bit of food on the left, or you could eat an entire pound of sweet corn. Do you see? They have the same amount of calories, almost the same amount of calories, and a whole pound of corn. I could eat more than a pound of corn. Honestly, I eat a lot of corn, but I'm one of those who do fine with it. But the point is, that would fill you up much more than this, and you'd be less likely to get overweight. Here is just simply 5 ounces of potato chips. 5 ounces of potato chips. You could either eat that has 750 calories, or you could eat 18 red potatoes. Is anybody going to eat 18 red potatoes? No, we're not saying to do that. The point is, you mix together the various whole plant foods. You cook them too. Obviously, you're not eating raw potatoes. And as you eat these things, and then we put on, Americans, I shouldn't say we, but Americans, they'll put on top of these butter, and they'll put bacon bits on it, and they'll put some, I don't know, do you put cream cheese or some kind of cheese thing on top of it? And then they say, man, those potatoes made me fat. Do you see the false conception we've been deceived into? We think potatoes make us fat. Potatoes are one of the best weight loss foods you could possibly eat. But you know when they do studies and they say, oh, look, potatoes can make you fat. You know what kind of potatoes people are eating in the study? Not even white. French fries. Is a French fry a potato? That's like saying like a house is a rock, right? Like, well, okay, you make houses out of rocks and you make French fries out of potatoes, but a French fry is not a potato itself. You understand? Big, big difference. Now, yes, it's made out of potatoes, and I get that. But the point is, potatoes are a great weight loss food. When you add oil to it, when you add butter to it, when you add cheese to it, yes, it becomes a weight-gaining food, but naturally, it's an amazing weight loss food. Now, these are 6 ounces of plantain chips. I love plantains, by the way, and we eat them. We still eat plantains, but the way we eat them is we fry them also. Typically, people fry them in oil. We don't use oil at all because I had gallbladder issues, and in order to remove the gallbladder issues and not to have to remove the gallbladder, I had to get rid of oil out of my diet. And so we can still fry food. The way we fry food is with water. We just use water. And so you literally put water in a pan just like you would put oil in a pan. You cut up the plantains. You know, plantains look like a banana, but they're more starchy. You put them in there, and it starts boiling. And then what happens to water when you boil it? It evaporates very fast. So you have to have a cup of water that you're always adding. So yeah, it takes a little more work, but you're putting it in there. My wife did this. We had some friends who are Dominican coming over, and you know, a lot of islanders historically and to this day eat plantain. And she was kind of embarrassed. She's like, "Oh man, what are my islander friends going to think when they eat plantains that are just, you know, fried in water?" And we do add some salt to it typically. And then she cooks it and they come over, and our islander friends they're eating the plantains, and they go back for more, and they're like, "How did you cook these things?" She's like, "You really want to know?" And she said, "Well, actually, I just did it in water." And they're like, "Really? They liked them. They're good." We found that we think we have to use oil because that's what makes it taste good, and we think actually it won't stick to the pan as much. Actually, you'll see a pan is easier to clean not using oil than using oil. But you have to keep adding the water, or else, yes, it would get stuck in there, and then it would be, you know, difficult. Yes. Yes. Okay. No. We don't make chips out of them. Like if you were to make like a, you know, you probably would. Could you actually? You might be able to bake them and make them crispy. You're never going to have them be like a chip. So like they actually do fry these if you buy them at Trader Joe's, and no, they'll never be like that. They're actually the ones when we fry them in water, it's soft, like because you can eat soft plantain also, you know, where it's just cooked, and that's the way it is. It'll never become like a potato chip. Yes. Yeah, I'll bet you. Yeah, you could totally do that, right? Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, thank you for saying. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, anybody here own an air fryer? Man, like a good chunk of us, like more than a third, like closing in on a half of us own air fryers. Air fryers are a great way to fry your food without what? Oil. You don't need any oil. So you can make French fries in your air fryer. Yes or no? You can put some salt on them, and you can still have something that tastes really good. Yes or no? Like, it's fantastic. You don't have to use oil. You can enjoy your food just as much as before. And yeah, you got to buy an air fryer, but or you just bake it, right? Or you just bake it. You have a question in the back? I think. Do you know? Is a convection oven? It seems quite similar. Yes, it seems similar. It's no, not exactly. Not exactly. Okay, so maybe there's a difference, but you could probably do generally the same thing in a convection oven. So if you have a convection oven, you don't want to spend $60 or $100 on an air fryer. You don't have to buy an air fryer. I'm not trying to tell you to do that. But if you're someone who needs regular French fries, you can either just bake them in the oven, cut them up into strips. You can still do it. It's just if you're looking to lose weight or reverse diabetes or heart disease, you know, you get rid of the oil. But check this out. These plantain chips are 6 ounces, and it's 840 calories. Or you could eat, notice if you were to cook a plantain, it's the same amount of ounces, yet it's only 200 calories. These are the exact same weight. So they're basically going to fill you up just about the same, except for one of them has 840 calories and one of them has 200 calories. Which one of these two is going to make you fat? Obviously this one, but people are going to say, this made me fat because it's a carb. Is this a carb? This is a fat. There's probably more than 50% fat in these chips, and we think it's the carbs making us fat. This is like the most unscientific theory that's almost ever existed. But let's go forward. Yes, sir. So it depends. So for instance, there's a guy by the name of Cyrus Khambatta. He wrote a book. If you're a type 1 diabetic, I would suggest a book. I haven't actually read it, but I've listened to this guy a number of times, and he is really, really good. He's a plant-based PhD, so he's a doctor, but not a medical doctor, a PhD. And Cyrus Khambatta is type 1, and he wrote a book with another guy who is a master's in public health. Both of them are type 1 diabetics who live on a total plant-based diet, and they actually eat ridiculous amounts of fruit. That's how they help their type 1 diabetes. Now, you don't fully reverse type 1. Type 2, in between 95% of people can reverse type 2 completely and not have to be on meds after a time of healthy living. But type 1s, if they have had it for a year or more, they're never going to be able to get rid of it. But they can get to the point where they use less insulin, eating actually a lot of, strangely enough, carbs. And I'm not talking about refined carbs. It is not the case with refined carbs. But I would suggest not that you just take my word for it. Read the book. It's called Mastering Diabetes. Mastering Diabetes. If you know someone who's a type 1, actually the book would be good for type 1 or type 2. But these guys literally eat entire meals of mango and just all kinds of stuff. And some of you may think, I don't want to live that way. But these guys love their lives. They are super fit. They are super healthy. And you can watch them online too. But Mastering Diabetes, you can find them on YouTube also to watch them. But I won't go into any more detail on that. But there's a reason why it is because once we already showed yesterday, fat clogs up the cells and makes them less open to taking up the glucose. So if you're eating a lot of fat, if you just eat fat, you don't have a blood sugar spike, and it looks like you don't have type 2 diabetes. It doesn't look like you have type 2 diabetes because you're not eating any carbohydrates. But then you do a glucose tolerance test where you make somebody drink some sugar, and boom, their blood sugar is just going to spike to the moon because their cells aren't opening up to the glucose. But when you remove all the high fatty foods, it doesn't mean you remove all fat. There's fat in all foods. There's fat in fruit. There's fat in veggies, in everything you eat. I don't know, there probably isn't in just pure sugar, but if you're eating any kind of actual natural food, even though on the nutrition label it might say 0 grams of fat, it's because once they get like less than 50% of a gram, they can put 0, even though there is fat in it. But so there's fat in every whole food. But check out that book if you have more questions about that. So this is 1 serving of Kit Kats, and yes, they are tasty. And I know you're not trying to decide between these two things, but I want to show you something that has the same amount of calories. You could either eat that, or you could eat 2 pounds of asparagus. Now, anybody like asparagus? Oh man, I love asparagus. I could eat that stuff all the time. I just really enjoy it. And that has less calories than those tiny. So once again, we say, oh man, these carbs are killing me. But it's like, there's some carbs in the greens, obviously, also, not as much in some fruit or whatever, but it's basically refined versus whole food that is making people fat. Look at this tiny bit. This tiny bit of mayonnaise has almost as many calories as 2 pounds of asparagus. And we put this on our bread, and we said, man, that bread made me fat. Do you see what's going on? We have been deceived as to what is actually causing the trouble. We go on here. 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm not sure why it's not showing up. Okay, 2 tablespoons of olive oil this is actually the fattest food on planet Earth is oil. There's nothing fatter, nothing on earth has more calories than oil. Whether it's coconut oil, olive oil, rapeseed oil, doesn't matter what oil it is, they all have basically the same amount of calories. You could either eat that, those two little things. Well, nobody just, well, actually, people do. You have doctors like Dr. Gundry, which is just ridiculous, telling people to drink some every morning or start the new year with drinking olive oil. Absolutely ludicrous. But notice this, or you could eat just under 2 pounds of sweet peppers. Which is going to fill you up here? You see, if you eat this, you need a whole nother meal added to it. Now, nobody's just going to eat this at a meal. I wouldn't, and I don't suggest that. But I'm just showing you what is making people fat. One thing makes you full, and another thing doesn't, and then you eat. Everybody eats till they're full. You're all going to eat a certain amount of food every meal, no matter what it is, but it depends on what you put in your gut. And that's another reason, if you want to lose weight, we were told in those little books we were given that you should drink something like a half an hour before a meal, something like, I think it's like 2 cups. And they've actually done research on that. If you drink 2 cups of water a half an hour before a meal and change nothing else, don't even change your diet, you will lose weight. If you need to lose weight. That simple thing. And then don't drink with your meal. Because what happens is, if I drink with my meal, what am I displacing? So that means I can only eat so much food at the mealtime. That means I'm going to get hungry quicker. That means I'm going to feel like I need a snack in between the next meal, and then I'm going to drink during the next meal, and then I'm going to repeat this problem. But if I only drink before the meal, then I don't even feel thirsty during the meal. And so it's not really an issue. And you can get used to it. It took me time, but now I have zero desire for a drink during a meal. Let's go on to the next one. Check this out. Chicken. You say, Chad, I just eat chicken, so I only eat the one that helps you lose weight. Wrong. Poultry may also be the most fattening meat. Chicken may be the most fattening meat. Those eating even 1 ounce of chicken a day, it's like 2 chicken nuggets, had a significantly greater gain in body mass index over a 14-year period than those who consume no chicken at all. Chickens have been genetically manipulated through selective breeding now to contain 2 or 3 times more calories from fat than from protein. And even skinless chicken may have more fat and even more artery-clogging saturated fat than a dozen different cuts of steak today. This whole idea that, I just eat chicken, so I'm that's why, and they think, man, I just eat chicken and I just can't lose weight. Could it be because this might be one of the most fat-gaining foods now today? The chicken today doesn't have chicken legs anymore, right? They've literally selectively bred these things to be filled with fat because we love the taste of fat. We love it. But let's go forward. So I want to show you, this is one, if this were a pound of potatoes is like 320 calories. If you turn that same potato into a tater tot, it becomes 906 calories per pound. So by adding, and what is it added to it that makes it have more calories? It's oil. If you take that same potato and you turn it into a potato chip, how many calories do you have per pound? 2,400 calories per pound. And we eat this and we say, man, these carbs are making me fat. And yet the majority of the calories in this are from what? Oil, which is a fat. And we say carbs are making America fat. This is so non-scientific, it boggles my mind. And then, when you just actually look at the research, you just look at the food itself, it's so clear. And then, let's go on. If you were to have, now obviously not talking about the cob, nobody eats the cob, but 400 calories per pound, we already looked at this, of corn. I'm not saying not to ever eat this, but I'm just showing what happens when we refine foods. If you turn it into a tortilla, it becomes 990 calories per pound. Now, like I said, I'm not saying never to eat it, but if you turn that into what? No, what do we put on the bottom of haystacks? Fritos. Not always, but Fritos is one of the popular ones, right? So if you turn corn into Fritos, it becomes what? 2,560 calories per pound. So you notice, We are like almost 6 times the amount of calories per pound here than you have here. And we blame those dirty carbs for causing all our trouble in life. But it's not the carbs that are causing the trouble. It's the calories that we're getting from the refined oil. You can eat some olive oil. Some olives, I should say. I'm not saying it's a sin to eat olive oil. I'm not. But if you want to lose weight, if you want to reverse type 2 diabetes or heart disease, getting rid of oil altogether is the best. And you can have a couple of olives, and it won't cause the same negative effects. I want to share with you, and we're almost done with this message, and I want to share with you a true story of Dr. Keim. He was a medical doctor out of Weimar, California, a number of years ago. There's actually a documentary. He died, and there's a documentary on his life how he may have been murdered by the cattle industry. There's a documentary about it. But nevertheless, regardless if he was murdered by the cattle industry, his family thinks he was, but at least his daughter does. She made the film. But Dr. Keim had a patient come to him, and he was talking to her. She wanted to lose weight. And she came to him, and he began to talk to her. Okay, you can begin to add more vegetables to your diet. You can add more fruit to your diet. And the woman said, no, not fruit. And he said, why not? And she said, well, fruit makes me fat. And he said, ma'am, I assure you it's not the fruit. And she said, no, fruit makes me fat. And he said, ma'am, I assure you it's not the fruit. And she said, listen, I know my body, and fruit makes me fat. He said, how about this? How about we do a little test? You go. It was Friday. He said, you go home for the weekend and eat as much fruit as you want. Just eat a ton of fruit. Come back here Monday morning. We'll weigh you, and we'll see how much weight you gain. And she was going to prove this ignorant doctor wrong. What did he know about her body? So she went home, and she just stuffed herself full of fruit. And her husband was watching her, and he was amazed. He had never seen her do something like this before. And she was just eating and eating and eating fruit. And after seeing this for a while, he's like, I got to go along and see what happens at the doctor's office. I'm going along to this visit. And so he went with her. And they get to the doctor's office, and she climbs up on the scale there, and the doctor, moves those little bars over to the side. And sure enough, you know what happened? She lost 2 pounds. And her husband said, Doc, you wouldn't believe it. He said, my wife, she was going to prove you wrong. She was eating so much fruit that she could hardly waddle away from the table. And what happened? She lost weight. Why is it? Fruit is one of the greatest weight loss foods on planet Earth. Unbelievable. And the proof, and I'm not telling you to do it, is, I already showed the research that Adventists who eat meat are the heaviest Adventists. The semi-vegetarian Adventists are overweight also, but slightly less so than the meat eaters. The fish-eating Adventists are slightly less overweight, but they're still overweight. The vegetarian Adventists are statistically overweight. The only group of Adventists that we looked at in the research, according to the scientific research, that are not overweight are the plant-based eaters. But do you know who's even skinnier than vegans? Fruitarians. They're vegans too, but fruitarians. If you ever look online at fruitarians, they're ridiculously skinny. And I'm not suggesting, I actually don't think you should be a fruitarian. That's not my point. But my point is, if fruit makes you fat, fruitarians would be fatter than can be, wouldn't they? I'm not kidding. There's Michael Arnstein is a fruitarian. He eats nearly 30 pounds of food a day. 30 pounds of food a day, and he's skinnier than I am. Does fruit make you fat? It's nearly, maybe if all day you just ate avocados, you could get fat. That might do it. But otherwise, it's not going to happen, and you probably wouldn't even then. But I'm not saying to do that. Don't eat a ridiculous amount of avocado. That can actually cause some, and that's not the best to overdo that. But we already looked at this. The research shows that diabetes, over 100,000 people in the British Medical Journal, that fruit actually, other than for 50% of people with cantaloupe, but 50% of people with cantaloupe, it lowers the risk of diabetes. So that one's kind of the anomaly there, the outlier. Strawberries, for most everybody, it lowers your chances of diabetes, and all the other fruit do the same. But I want to show you a chart that I put together. This is calories per pound. So right here you have, greens or something like broccoli, 160 calories per pound. You could never get overweight if you just ate broccoli. Don't just eat broccoli. But eat, various vegetables, very little calories. Fruit, like apples, 240 calories per pound. You could never, ever get fat eating apples, ever. You couldn't do it. You couldn't eat all day and get fat off apples. You just couldn't do it. You just couldn't. And nobody would do it, but you couldn't. And then you get onto like oatmeal, 304 calories per pound. Then you get onto sweet potatoes or even regular potatoes. And do you know some people have more of a blood sugar spike? Typically people say, well, white potatoes cause more of a blood sugar spike in diabetics. But actually, this Cyrus Kambata, who's a type 1 diabetic, he found out that sweet potatoes actually give him more of a spike than white potatoes. So the point is, if you're a diabetic, the way you find out is by checking your blood sugar. You're going to have to find out for yourself. You can't take somebody else's word for it. But also, if you go to a high-carb diet, a whole food diet, a diabetic is going to have blood sugar spikes for the first few days. And within probably 2 to 3 days, their blood sugars will just start coming down ridiculously fast. So don't give up because 2 or 3 days don't look good. Ridiculously fast. If you're not eating, talk to me if you want to talk about diabetes. I could go into more detail. I don't want to do that right now. So then you get on to beans, might be around 550 calories per pound. And if you stick to a diet of these things, and I don't mean just broccoli, apples, and all these things, but meaning vegetables, fruit, grains, root vegetables and beans. If you mix with and you can even have your herbs mixed in, all that, and greens, mix all those things together, you can have tons of different food. And by the way, one of the clearest predictors of gut health, according to a medical doctor, gastroenterologist named Will Bolshevitz, he was talking to some other, gut specialist, and they found, looking at research, that people who have 30 different plants a week have some of the healthiest guts. 30 different plants a week. So, that sounds like a ton, but imagine if you have like 4 different plants a meal. Over the course of a week, you eat, if you only eat 2 meals a week, 2 meals a day, that would be 14 meals times 4 would be what? That's way more than 30. And I'm not saying you have to do different ones at every single meal, but diversity is one of the best things for your gut. So diversify within these categories, and by doing this, notice what happens once you go from beans to meat, like chicken. You basically double the calories. And it's the calorie density, because you're going to eat the same amount of food at every meal. Almost every meal you eat the same amount of food. So let's say it's 1.5 pounds of food every meal. Well, if you eat 1.5 pounds of this food, you're only going to have a little bit of calories. If you eat 1.5 pounds of this food, you're going to have way more calories, probably twice or more calories. So none of this is, like I said, we're going to have some chips today, but in general, if you want to go on this diet, make the chips in the book, because they will help you to lose weight. If you want to gain weight, tortilla chips are a great way to gain weight. They're a really good way to do it. So, but we're doing that because it's the easiest thing to do for right now. But so check this out. So then, 1,000 calories per pound of chicken, 1,300 calories for beef, 1,400 calories per pound of pork, and then you get up to cheese, and cheese has 1,800 calories per pound. But then you think, well, that's bad enough, but then we get to the chips, and we're at 2,400 calories per pound. And then you get up to this one here, which is what? Oil, the fattest food, the most calorie. If you want to gain weight, oil is one of the best ways to do it. And when I say best, I don't mean that it's the healthiest way. It's just the best way to put weight on your body. And so how many of you have heard women say, I can't lose any weight, and all I do is eat salad? You ever heard that before? You maybe have heard that before. And is it the lettuce that is keeping you from gaining weight, or from losing weight? No, it is what? It is this right here. That's exactly what it is. The good thing is, there are recipes for low-fat, healthy, you don't have to eat it as oil. And it's not a sin to eat olive oil. It's just, it might keep you as a diabetic, and you might continue on to have, more trouble with heart disease as a result of oil. So let me see if there's one more thing here. We're just about done. Okay, and yeah, I guess I already kind of showed this. So that gives you that. And also, the other thing is we already looked at these ones here. So we looked at how many calories in these various foods, and boy, did I make this slide slow. And that was unintentional. But this one is interesting. Looking at nuts. Nuts might have 2,500 calories per pound. And so if you're looking to lose weight, reverse type 2 diabetes, reverse heart disease, eat no more than a handful of nuts in an entire day, not a meal. It's not a sin to eat more. I'm just telling you, if you want to lose weight, no more than a handful in an entire day. So that means if you're really looking to reverse disease, that means you don't have a dressing made with nuts and a handful of nuts and some gravy made with nuts. It's not a sin. It's just that you're not going to be likely to lose weight significantly or reverse type 2 diabetes. A lot of nuts do have a lot of fat. And we were actually told in those wonderful books, eat nuts sparingly. That's right. Eat nuts sparingly. Don't overdo nuts. They're good for you. They are very good for you. But overdoing a good thing is not so healthy. So that is the full factor. Now I want to share one thing in closing with this message. The true method of victory. Have you ever tried to overcome something and over and over and over and failed? Probably all of us have, right? If we'd be honest. And how many of you have heard of Joe Kreuzer? Some of you have heard of old Adventist preacher. He's passed away. I know his grandson named Joe Kreuzer. And the old Joe Kreuzer was on a plane back in the day. Some of you remember there used to be a time where you could smoke cigarettes on airplanes. Can you imagine that today? If somebody just lit up a cigarette on an airplane, you would think, what on earth? But we used to be okay with that, right? And so, not we, but you get the idea. And so he was sitting down next to a fella on a plane, a younger man, and the guy was staring up at the no smoking sign, and they taxied down the runway and took off, and as they finally got to 10,000 feet or whatever, they turned off the no smoking sign, and the guy reached into his bag, pulled out a cigarette, and lit it up. And Joe Kreuzer sitting next to him, turns next to him, and he said, "Hey, you ever think about quitting?" And the guy said, "Yeah, I've thought about it over and over. I tried. I just can't quit." And Joe said, "Actually, one of the things I do is I actually teach people how to overcome smoking. Is it okay if I share with you?" The guy said, "Sure, yeah, why not?" And so Joe reaches into his bag and he pulls out a Bible. And the guy said, "Oh no, I tried that and it didn't work." And he said, "Okay." He said, "Well, do you mind if I share with you one thing?" It turned out the guy was a Baptist and, he believes in the Bible. And so Joe says to him, "Well, do you mind if I share a verse with you?" "Sure." And so he turned to him to 1 Corinthians 15, 57, and 58, which says this. It says, "But thanks be to God, which gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, for as much as you know that your labor is not in vain in the Lord." But the first part said, "Thanks be to God, which gives us the victory." And so Joe turned to the man and he said, "Let me ask you a question. The last time you tried to quit smoking, did you believe that God gave you the victory?" And the man's response was, "Well, no, I guess I didn't." And Joe began to explain that we have to believe that God actually gives us the victory by faith. For by grace are you saved through faith. The Bible tells us in Hebrews chapter 4, it says, Hebrews chapter 4 verse 2 says, "For unto us," which is speaking of the modern Israelites, "for unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto them." And in the context, it was unto the ancient Israelites. "For unto us was the gospel preached as well as unto the ancient Israelites." It says, "But the word did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in those who heard it." The Bible actually says the gospel was preached to the Jews back in the Old Testament, but it didn't benefit them because when the word was preached to them, they didn't take it with faith. So if when you try to overcome, you don't believe in faith that God is going to give you the victory, guess what? There's no benefit. We have to believe that God will give us what? The victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. And friends, we need to learn to be people of prayer where we talk to God as to a friend. I have a friend who, he's a brother, and he prays more than any human I think I've ever met. Young man, he's probably five years younger than me, and grew up in the hood. He was a drug dealer, but he just prays all the time. And almost every time I talk with him, he'll start the conversation like this. And he's not trying to act all holy. It's just because he's praying all the time. He literally begins almost every conversation like, I was talking to the Father. I was talking to the Father. And I'm just like, man, this guy's amazing. I'm like, Lord, help me pray half as much as he does, right? And he's always talking to the Father, like the Father is in his bedroom with him, you know? He's always talking to the Father. And my wife and I picked him up from the airport. No. He picked us up from the airport. We were flying back to Chicago, and he picked us up at that time. And we get in the car, and we're talking for a little bit, and then he did it again. I was talking to the Father, and he said, because we were working in the ministry at that time, this is a number of years ago, and the funding dried up, and so we all were working in different ways to make a living, and he was working at Target. And he's a good-looking guy. And so, he's a good-looking guy, and he's a nice guy, and he's a Christian, and so the girls at Target started digging him. They liked him. They were attracted to him, because he's a nice guy, And so, This is literally the conversation he said. He said, I was talking to the Father. And I said, Father, you got to help me, because these girls are fine. He said, you got to help me, Father, because I know that if I get with one of these girls, I'm going to receive the mark of the beast. And he said that, and I just started laughing. And the reason I laughed is because, number one, I don't pray anything like that, right? If I were struggling with lust, my prayer would be like, oh, Lord, help me not to sin. You kind of cover it up, right? Like you won't even tell God what you're really dealing with. You understand? And I thought, wow, this brother prays to God as to a friend. Because sometimes you bring it to God and you're not even like willing to tell God what you're really struggling with. You understand what I'm saying? And you don't want to tell God because then you think he might actually know what you're struggling with and then he'd be ashamed of you. But guess what? Does God know what you're struggling with? He knows every thought that went through your mind. And you know what? He still loves you. And if you bring it to him just as it is, all filthy and nasty, it might make it more real to you what you're struggling with. Come to him just as you are. Father, you know about my diet problems. You know I struggle with junk food. You know that I buy a dozen donuts and eat the whole box, Father. And you know what, Father? I want to go buy a dozen right now and eat all of them. Honestly, you can pray that. But Father, I also know how I feel when I finish the box. I feel terrible. I feel sluggish. I feel like sleeping. I don't feel good. And then I feel down and depressed because I did it again. And Father, you know what? I also know that you're all powerful. And I know that you said in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 57, you give us the victory. That you can give me the victory, and I trust that you'll give me the victory. Mark Finley shares a story of a man that was trying to quit smoking. And Mark Finley said to the brother, hey, let's kneel down and pray that God will give you the victory. Can we do that? And they kneeled down together, and Mark Finley said to the brother, can you pray first? And the guy got down and he prayed like this. Father, you know how much I struggle with cigarettes. And you know I can't quit. And you know I just feel like I'm going to go back to it again. And Father, I just think I'm going to, probably in 5 minutes, I'll go just smoke another cigarette. And Father, I know I can't overcome. And after a while of this guy praying like this, Mark Finley shook the guy and he said, brother, stop praying, stop praying. He said, brother, you're going to be worse off after this prayer than when you began. And I'm not saying come to God and just go on and on and on and on and on about your lust problem or your food problem or your anger problem. Bring it to God. Be honest with him. Don't deny it. Don't cover it up and sugarcoat it. Be honest. God, I want to eat all this, but I also know how bad it's going to make me feel. And I know, and then you turn away from self and what you want. And you turn to the promises. And you begin to look at God and say, God, You took a stubborn, rebellious people out of Egypt, and you gave many of them victory. Sure, some of them fell in the wilderness, but you can give me the victory. You took Peter, who failed time and time again, and you changed him into being one of your most powerful tools in your kingdom. Father, you can take broken people, and I know you delight to take failures and to turn them into victors. You could take Jacob, and you could take, Jacob, and you can turn him into Israel, which means to be a overcomer. Father, you could make me Israel. You could make me an overcomer. Father, and I know I don't have the power to do it, but I know you are all powerful. And do you see how believing that God gives you the victory can change your life? And friends, we need to come to God as to a friend. Do not give up. So some of these simple things, like I said, I went to school and I thought, well, Adventists don't eat between meals. I guess I'll just never do that again. And then I found out later, oh, actually, many of them do, right? And I found out that these things, not every Adventist gets up at 5 in the morning and reads their Bible for 3 hours like my roommate did, but I didn't know that. So that's what I was doing, right? And so, but you know what? You can start now doing the right thing. You can decide, we're told we shouldn't eat anything between meals, not so much as a peanut should be eaten between meals. You might be like, it's just a peanut. No, we're told not even a peanut. And so this is not being judgmental. And if you do eat between meals, I'll love you anyway. But I know you'll be happier and healthier if you don't. And I know you can do it. I know you can do it. I really believe in you. That God can give you the victory. And you know what? My hope is that this church right here, is it called Country Life SDA Church? My hope is that this church right here will become the healthiest and happiest church in the state of Texas. I love this church. If I lived in this area, I would go to this church. You're already wonderful people, but imagine how you could be if everybody got healthier and healthier and healthier, and the whole community is like, what on earth is going on in that church? And people come to you and they're like, wow, you look great. What have you been doing? And you begin to have this. I know God can do this in your life, and you could be a light on a hill. And we can encourage each other. We're not here to put anybody down. Don't anybody feel put down right now, because I'm not putting anybody down. I know what it's like to be unhealthy. My wife and I, we were plumping out after getting married. We were delighting ourselves in fatness after getting married. And we were also feeling like junk. But you know what? After the change was made, I feel so much better. I mean, I haven't run much in the last 2 years because I'm working around our homestead, and I'm chopping down trees, and I'm doing all kinds of hard labor, so I just don't run. But I come here and I thought, well, I just thought I'll run 3 miles, and I did it, and I wasn't even winded at the end. I mean, and this is at the age of 40, and I couldn't do that when I was 16. I couldn't run 3 miles well at 16 at all, and now it's easy at 40, and it's not because I'm a great person or I'm just naturally fit. It's because this food, the Bible says God delights your mouth with good things so that your youth is renewed like the eagles. If you're willing to implement these things, you can find the very same benefits. You say, Chad, I'm older than you. Okay, it's all relative. But you could begin to feel better than you have felt maybe in years. So I would challenge you. You can do it. You can make a difference. And as this church, you can be the greatest light. And this can actually, now, you need to share the gospel with the community, but this can be a part of your life being changed here, can make you realize, wow, if God can do that in my life, what can't He do in my life? He could do all kinds of things because the spiritual and the physical are joined up together. But I want to close with a prayer before we go forward with our next thing. So let's pray. Father, thank you for the fact that Jesus gives us the victory. You say, thanks be to God anyway, who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Father, some of us may have fallen 100 times. We may have gone back to Krispy Kreme over and over and thought, oh, I'll just get the free one they give when they're hot, and then we buy a dozen and we eat 13. And this is no finger pointing and putting down. Father, we're broken human beings, and we have desires, we have cravings that we cannot overcome, but we know you can. That you can give us the victory. that you can change our lives so that we begin to have blood flow surging through our bodies like we haven't had in years, because our arteries begin to open up within days. And as that blood flows to our brain and our mind is clearer and it yields itself more to your Holy Spirit, and actually we become happier, and your word doesn't depress us because it makes us feel guilty as we do some of these things, and our heart and mind become united in you, and we have this happiness and this joy that gives us joy to even spend time in your word. Lord, I know what it's like to go through this. I know what it's like to read the Bible and feel like every word was condemning my soul. And I know what it's like to, after the depression went away, to have the blessing of spending time in your word. And Lord, I pray that you would give us victory, that we would be people of the book once again, that all of us would spend time daily in your word, that we wouldn't go a day without reading your word. And that we would more and more, for those who need it, we would implement some of these health principles and find the great benefits, maybe even reverse type 2 diabetes, or begin to arrest or maybe even reverse our heart disease. That we would become healthier and happier and be transformed in the image of Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen. Yeah. Do you have anything else to present? I could. We could take a little break. Yeah, we could always do that. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Short. Okay. All right. Very good. All right, folks. So we're not quite ready for the. We just need to serve it, but the chili is ready. There's some salad. There's some cheese sauce that is from the recipe book, and then there's some chips. He mentioned chips. If any one of you wanted to know the calories, I looked at after I saw the presentation, I went over there and checked. 7 chips, 140 calories. So if you're struggling with calories, you may want to keep that in mind. If you're not, obviously, then that's not such a big concern. And enjoy the food. I mean, don't think about that now, but just enjoy. Right now it's not a good time to sit down and count the calories in front of the food. You can do that at home, but just to prove what he was saying, it's amazing, isn't it? I'm like being. No, that's it. No more. Yes. So we don't. Elena Sanker made the cheese sauce. She unfortunately is not able to be here to show how to make it. She made Italian type dressing, which is mixed with a salad. And it's one of those that they mentioned from the book. And so, but she's not here to show it either. And Carrie Ousley made a lentil delight, and she's not here to show how it's made. And so, Lisa.
If your email is not on the church bulletin list and you want the recipes, I'm going to put this paper up here. Put your email down, and I'll get them to you.
All right. Did everyone hear that? If you want the recipes email, go ahead and put your email there. Let me just quickly check here and see the progress. All right. Great. And then. All right. So yeah, that granola was good, but it hardly filled your tooth, right? It's just very. What I didn't tell you is it was supposed to help you practice your chewing, like chewing 30 times a minute. 30 times per bite. Just kidding. Jokes aside, if anyone feels like food was not enough, I take full responsibility. It's my fault. I was the one coordinating that. I guess I can say I'm a guy, and you put up with it. I'm so sorry. I know this is embarrassing, but thank you for being patient and for being. So after the meal, Chad, if you all want, he can have a short presentation still, more information. That's, I guess, let's take a vote. Would that be something that you would like to stay with, or we can just cut it short, and after the meal we can leave? I don't know. Can I see a show of hands? How many would like to stay for a short presentation afterward? Don't see a lot of hands. Okay. Well, his presentations are on the videos that he's selling, and so I think we'll just, after the meal, we'll just end it, and everyone can go home. They were being live streamed for the church, and they'll be recorded on the church website. And so if you wanted to watch them again, you go back to the church website, they'll be there. And you can review what you have learned this morning. Yes, please.
Okay, let me share with you about the DVDs very quickly, just so everybody can hear it at once, or else we'll have to share it, with everybody. We can share with you again afterward. Okay, but I'll share it with you who haven't heard. Basically, you can. We have a bunch of different series, like you've heard a bunch of our gut-brain connection series here. There's more in here that we didn't share here, but this is like 6 messages on the gut-brain connection. We have another series called The Science of Herbs and Natural Remedies. It's actually scientific studies, not just quackery or somebody said this. We're actually looking at scientific studies where many of them they've compared head-to-head in the scientific literature natural remedies with actual drug medication, and we generally show the ones that are just as good or better than the drug medication in the research with significantly less side effects. So that's a series. That's 5 different DVDs there. And then, and there's also audio files from those messages. We have a series on overcoming bad habits, any bad habit that you may struggle with, including how to overcome in the area of finding forgiveness. That's 6 messages also on DVDs there. We have a series here called Overcoming the Media Trap Naturally. It's basically some of the science of what the media is doing to our brains, and then after that it goes into the scientific benefits of spending time in nature. It's kind of powerful if you're thinking about country living. And then we have the documentary. You've seen some video clips of this called Ancient Health. This is a documentary with archaeologists, or at least one archaeologist and then other health professionals in there. And that's an 1.5-hour documentary. Then we have... this is a 2 DVD series. Now it's kind of more, now the rest of it is more Bible and archaeology. This is an archaeology series called Revelation 7 Churches. We went over to Turkey to the 7 churches, the archaeological sites, and we have scholars mixed in there, and that's a couple series. And then we have there's 2 more here. There's one called Transform Brain, Transform Life. It's more of a spiritual thing, but it does talk about the science of the brain and how your brain can be transformed. Then we have an entire series on overcoming type 2 diabetes, and that most people can actually overcome it. And it also benefits for people with type 1, but it doesn't reverse type 1. But the principles are also beneficial for people with type 1. Then we have an entire series of documentaries that are made to be witnessing tools on our message on. This one is on why the Bible can be trusted. This one is then number 2, I guess we ran out of it. There's one on the Ark of the Covenant, but we would ship them if you need them. We have one on the Antichrist. We have one on how the Antichrist changed God's law. We have one called Death, Near Death, and Life After Death. And just to let you know, each one, the documentaries, most of them are $15 a piece. But if you buy the whole set of 7, they're $10 a piece. If you buy this one, normally is $25 on our website. It's $20 in person. This one's normally $20 on the website. It's $15 in person. These are normally $49.99, $50 a set. The set series, like with 5 or 6 messages, or up to 10. It's 6 discs. These are typically $50 on our website plus shipping. But if you buy them in person, they're $40. But if you buy the entire set, it is half off. So it ends up being, it would be full price would be...
For just the DVDs, we don't do half off.
Yeah, not half off on the cookbook. The cookbook we didn't make, so that we do make all the rest, so we can do half off on that.
So half off would be, total would be $450 for these.
So total $450 if you bought all of them except for the cookbook.
It would be $225, and then
$225. So $225 is the half off price.
Plus the cookbook is 15.
Yeah, the cookbook's 15.
And then you add
There is tax because Texas is very stringent about taxes. They actually ask when you come to do taxes. So
everything here with the cookbook and taxes would be
$260
$260.
for everything, or $225 if you just want the DVDs. So, but that's
No, but with tax.
oh, with tag. Oh, okay.
$260 is with the cookbook and tax.
With tax. Okay, so with tax, everything is $260 with tax. So, but you don't have to buy everything. But if you want to, you get a deal that you won't be able to get on our website. So that kind of lets you know. But I think we now did we pray for the second meal? Okay, let's pray for this. And obviously, once again, this isn't working out well. We're kind of eating between meals here, so this is probably. But yes, your question. So the heart disease, I actually don't. So the same principles in the overcoming the gut brain connection seminar, and really I actually have a bunch of material on heart disease, and I shared with you one message, but I haven't recorded it yet. So the whole series, someday I plan to have that recorded. But the cookbook, if you only eat the ones that have the T in front of them, the therapeutic diet, that is the diet that has been shown to arrest or reverse heart disease in the majority of people. So that is it. So in the cookbook. Any other quick questions before we pray? No. And if not, come talk to us. We'll be here. So this will be it. You can eat your food, and then if you want to look at the DVDs, great. And then I think we're done. But let's close with a word of prayer. Father, I pray that you would be with each one of us. Thank you for this time together, Lord. I pray that you would bless the food, that you would give strength and health, and may these things be a great blessing. Lord, I know not everybody is ready to fully make an entire change like this, but Lord, there may be some here who need it. They're struggling with health issues, with achy joints, with depression, with diabetes, heart disease, and maybe a complete change, saying, hey, 1 week from now, I'm going to do all this. That they would, even though it would be a significant change, actually sometimes it's easier to change everything than it is to slowly change. Sometimes the slow change is even harder. So Lord, for those who need it, I pray that they would do that, and those who just need to make a few positive changes, they would find a benefit to those also. Bless us as those who eat, in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, I think we'll probably do the same thing. Do we have? Here, I'll let you share.
Yes, I that's what Chad was saying. So we'll go by tables. Again, same thing. This side first, and then we'll go this way. And so I guess you're happy you sat on this side now. I know. Life's not fair. And so. There is the salad is on this side behind the screen. So please get your salad after you get the entrees. Salad and the chips and the cheese sauce will be there. You'll see a small plate of yellow chips on the side of the entrees. Those are the cornmeal chips that were made by Ruby. She didn't have a chance to tell you how to make them, but they're on the recipes.
One more thing, for those of you, and I guess people watching online, if you want to check out our YouTube channel, just type in health. You can either Google it or go to YouTube, type in health, and then the word and homestead. Health and Homestead is our YouTube channel, and our website is anchorpointfilms.com. Anchorpointfilms.com, yes. You couldn't get it last night. Okay, so did you, here, I'll show you.